Welcome back to another video. This is probably my favorite topic to talk about. I'm gonna put up a graph on the screen, probably around here, and yeah, we're gonna talk about the most important metric that we should be measuring on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. And it's usually people think like ROAS or something, or CAC to LTV, but I actually definitely believe that it's new customers. First off, if you're new here, my name's Leighton. I have an agency based in Dublin. We work with Shopify brands across Europe and the US, across acquisition, which is all your advertising needs, your retention, email, SMS, and loyalty, creative strategy and creative creation, and then also financial forecasting / planning. So, new customers. So if we work on a new business, what we first want to set out on our forecast is how many new customers does this business need on a monthly basis to really make a difference here. And that's really what I like to look at the advertising channels for. Retargeting is great and it's definitely important. And I know I get the whole idea of, brand needs to see us 7 or 8 times before they make a purchase, but we really want to use the advertising channels to just focus on new customers, because then we can really dial in our CAC and we can really dial in the MER. Why should we look at new customers? Okay, so first off, I assume that if you have an e-commerce business and you're watching one of these videos, it's probably a good product. You're probably doing good by your customers. You're delivering things on time. You have good customer support. You've done your product research. You've built something that people really want. So the LTV or the multiple purchases should be there. So what we really want to dial in is, okay, how do we actually ramp this up? Because if we focus purely on new customers and that LTV and that returning purchase are there, you're going to experience a really strong compounding growth. Similar to me from an agency perspective, like I want people to come into our agency and work with us for 3+ years. There's no point in an agency just constantly recycling customers. You're not even building anything then. You're running on a treadmill essentially. So most e-commerce brands obsess over ROAS, still interestingly enough, and still decent sized businesses day to day, and they wonder why their growth feels so stressful and unpredictable. So today I want to show you the single metric that actually drives long-term revenue, which is new customers. So what I mean by new customers, to put it simply, how many people bought from you for the first time this week? Not total orders, not total new revenue, pure new buyer volume. This is the fuel of every growing brand. Why this matters more than anything else: every new customer feeds future revenue through retention and repeat purchases. So it increases lifetime value automatically over time. It makes scaling cheaper because you're able to push from a CPA perspective because you're so confident in your returning customer and your LTV. It builds brand momentum instead of relying on retargeting. And if new customers are rising consistently, business almost always grows. So what happens to brands that don't track this properly? I see this all the time, and I think I'm not saying that everybody needs to listen to this, but I think a lot of you do. When you're looking at ROAS can look healthy, but like your performance might not be there. And revenue looks okay short term because the retargeting carries your sales. So if you have a ROAS, it's kind of like, you kind of think of it the same as branded search on Google, which I'm not saying is a bad thing. I'm actually doing a video on that next week too. But ROAS, you could run, if you're in business like 5-6 years, you definitely have customers that are happy. You can run a campaign of your previous customers and see a 6, 7, or 8 ROAS. But is that really what you want to be focusing on? Because you could probably get those customers to come back through your retention tactics if you have that dialed in from an email, SMS, and loyalty program perspective. What we should really be doing if we're spending all this money on advertising is we should really be making the strategy centered around new customers. So this is why brands always hit plateaus, because ROAS lies without new customer context. So you can obviously have great ROAS but no growth, bad ROAS but massive growth, and ROAS alone doesn't tell you if you're building that real customer base. It just tells you how much money you've spent and how much money you've gained. But there's a lot more to dive into within those figures. So the new customers do tell you that. So the simple weekly system that we use is set a weekly new customer target. And I'm not saying that you're going to hit that every week, but definitely look at the trends on a monthly basis. So really set a monthly target on new customers and then set a weekly target on new customers, and there'll probably be a discrepancy. But that's what you should be focusing on. And when you're building out I'll put a screenshot of a forecast here, but when you're building out those forecasts or plans, don't just say I want to do 200 grand in January, 220 in February, 300 and X, Y, and Z. you should really be centering it around, okay, how many new customers do I want? And building your plan around that, because that's a lot more predictable in order to scale up your growth. And you can also compare that to your CPAs year on year. And yeah, if new customers are rising sustainably, you're winning. And if they're flat or they're falling, growth's going to stall no matter what ROAS looks like. Just don't lean on ROAS as your saving grace. Focus on the new customers and let that tell you how your business is doing. So instead of asking, is the ad profitable today? Ask, how many new customers did this ad bring into my business today or this week? And that's pretty much it. And that's all I wanted to talk about. Focus on your new customers. We do a little bit on new customers on our newsletter, so sign up for that if you want to hear some more information on that. But of course, book in for a call with me if you'd like. We can kind of dive into it a little bit more. We can build out that forecast. My name's Leighton. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and go Mila Margaret.